everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sportsbook Confidential here at the Finger Lakes One Studios in Seneca Falls, New York. This little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And we got a little new thingy up in the corner. Am I going the right way? This way? It has my name there, but it also has the phone number. It's a little hard to read there, but 866-315-FLX1, extension 810. If you want to call us and leave your comments, feedback, questions, other bad jokes, anything that interests you. And just remember, if you call in, we may play your call on the air. So, big Super Bowl show today. We're going to talk about some other sports as well. But before we get into all of that, let's do what we always do and start by updating my bankroll. And if those of you that watched last week, because we didn't have many sports, I live handicapped 3 college basketball games, and my starting bankroll for the weekend was 684. And we had Michigan minus 4.5, and they blew out Indiana, and that was a win for plus $23. And then we had the Buffalo under 162, and Kent State came out like 7 of 8 from 3, and they really put up a good number, and we missed that by a couple of points. So that was a loss, minus 23. And then the Butler-Creighton over. Creighton put up like 80. Butler only put up like 52 or 53. They usually average about 75 points a game, so that was a dud. Minus 23. And if you do the math, it's minus $23 for a new bankroll of 661. And dividing by 30, as we always do, our new bet size going forward is going to be $22. So before we get into the Super Bowl, because of the types of bets that are offered for the Super Bowl, today's sportsbook lesson is going to be all about prop betting. And for those of you that have no idea what a prop bet is, well, we're going to talk about that right now. A prop bet is also known as a proposition wager. And the definition of a proposition is an assertion of opinion. So if you hold a strong enough opinion on a contest or a topic or an outcome, you may want to make a friendly wager on that outcome. And as I have listed on the screen there, the most common prop bets are between friends. For example, I might be hanging out with my friends and say, you know, I could eat 50 chicken wings in 10 minutes. And somebody will say, no, you can't. And I'll say, let's put some money on it, or I'll bet you a round of beers or a round of coffee, and we go through that. It's very common. People make prop bets all the time. And sportsbook props are slightly different, but it's the same concept. Sportsbooks usually offer props on player performance or a specific event occurring. In the U.S., you can't really bet on non-sports wagers. For example, you can in the U.K. you can bet on the presidential election, and right now there are offshore sports books that offer odds on who's going to be the next president of the United States, and they offer different odds on the choices. But in the U.S., they can only do this on pretty much only sporting events. I believe that in Nevada they're allowing betting on the Oscars this year for the very first time. But here's examples of sportsbook wagers as related to the Super Bowl. We have Jared Goff, 300 passing yards, over or under. So the sportsbook will set a line of how many yards he will throw for, and you can bet over that amount or under that amount, and they're well, depending on the line, there will be varying odds. They won't always be the same on both sides. Another example of specific event occurring is, will there be a safety in the Super Bowl? You can say yes or no. The yes super safeties are pretty rare. I believe the current odds a yes for a safety is like plus 730 something. So it's you don't get the same payout if you say no, because that's a more likely occurrence. And then here's, they have some out there ones, and this one I just made up myself. I don't think anybody's offering this, but will Gronk eat a Tide Pod during the broadcast, yes or no? And I don't think he will, but if the odds were right, somebody might take a bite on something like that. But they do, but some people do bet on what color Gatorade will be dumped at the end of the game, and and how long the national anthem will be, over under the minutes and seconds, things of that nature. So prop bets are very interesting. I do want to, with exception of the Super Bowl, a caveat of prop bets is that the limits are very low. This show is designed for beginner to intermediate sports bettors, and we're working with a small bankroll on the show here, and my bets are small enough that I don't have to worry about hitting those limits. But for somebody that's used to betting, several $100s on a game, they might only be able to get $200 on a prop or $250 on a prop. I do know that at the Westgate in Las Vegas, they have, I think they had $2,000 limits on their props, which they may change, after, depending on how much action they take. They have to manage their risk, of course. But that is the lesson today for prop betting. So it's pretty straightforward, and we'll have a couple of props at the end of the show. We're going to look at a menu of prop bets, and there's about 300 of them. I don't know if I'm going to go. I mean, I'm obviously not going to go through all of them, but I will string through a few as I see them. So let's get into the meat and potatoes this week, and let's start with the NHL on Friday, and 8 games on Friday's schedule. This is very interesting. Not usually this many games on a Friday, but they just got off the All-Star break, and teams are just getting back into the swing. And now it's February 1st, and we've got about 3 weeks left before the trade deadline. I think it's the 25th. So teams that are going to be in the playoffs will be looking to acquire players, and teams that are not will be looking to dump. So we'll see what happens. First up, we got the Nashville Predators at the Florida Panthers, and as I've talked on the show many times, the Panthers really do not have any type of home ice advantage. They play to an empty crowd most nights. The Preds have arguably the best goaltending in the league with Saros and Rinne. I really like the Preds in this matchup. It's a very nice price for them. I would consider even taking them on the money line at this price. You could probably get -1 at about 160, 165, plus 165. So if you think they're going to win and you want the juicier odds, you could go that way. Interesting to see how these teams, come back after the break here. So on to the next game, the Flames at the Capitals. And the Capitals finished the first half of the season with about a 4 or 5 game losing streak. It was very, very awful. And Ovechkin said he was skipping the All-Star game because he needed to rest. He's 34 years old now. I don't blame him. I'm not sure if he's I don't think he's suspended for this game, but I'll double check. The Flames have played very well this year. They're a very balanced team. And if Riddick is starting tonight, he's their best goaltender by far. He's been one of the best goaltenders in the league this year. And it's hard to turn down the Capitals at plus money, but they've been playing pretty crappy. I don't know. We'll see where that ends up. And then you got the Senators at the Penguins. And the Penguins just had a nice win against Tampa Bay the other night. They're playing really well. Matt Murray, his goaltending has been tremendous. If he is not starting tonight, that would make me think about taking the Senators at that juicy plus 218, because the Senators, if they decide to show up tonight, they could be competitive. You could take that, Senators +1 goals at about plus 150. So if you think they can keep it close, it's a very attractive odds there. The Penguins are playing really great, though. It's tough to fade them at this point. And then you have the Tampa Bay Lightning at the New York Islanders. And the Islanders were sniffing first place in their division. I'm not sure if they're still there. The Tampa Bay came off that loss against Pittsburgh, and Tyler Johnson was out for that last game, and Vasilevsky got kind of lit up. Not horribly bad, but I think he gave up 4. The Lightning on paper is the better team here, but the Islanders are in a much better place right now. And I feel like they play better when they're in Nassau as opposed to the Nassau Coliseum as opposed to Brooklyn. I think they're going to be playing in Brooklyn most of the games that are left, but it's been up in the air whether they are going to play any playoff games, which venue. But that's a fair price for the Islanders. Lehner's been lights out this year, totally different player than when he was with the Sabres. Then you have the Blackhawks at the Sabres, and Delia, I believe, is the name of the goaltender for the Blackhawks that's come up and performed really well. He's really impressed me. Crawford's injured. Cam Ward is ancient. The Sabres, they have great efforts and then poor efforts, and it's not consistent. Their whole year has been like that, and it's hard to take them at that price. The Blackhawks seems to be the side here. The Blackhawks could put up several goals on Ullmark tonight. We'll see what happens. You have the Maple Leafs at the Red Wings, and the Red Wings have been pretty feisty lately. The Maple Leafs are rested, though, and they just picked up Jake Muzzin. This is pretty appropriately priced. I feel like if the Red Wings were 200, I would consider taking them. Leafs minus 1.5 would be pretty juicy. I think it would probably be about 120 something. I'm not sure, but you got to favor the Maple Leafs here. Nothing really stands out. Then you have Vegas at the Hurricanes, and Vegas ended the first half really strong. Fleury has been lights out. His goaltending, he's been probably the best goaltender in the West, but his backup Sullivan has been very poor. So they called up Legacy, and he's expected to start tonight. And he was a very solid goaltender at the AHL level, but I am not sure how he's going to perform. But those are very good odds on Vegas. I feel like Vegas has the speed to keep up with the Hurricanes, and they have the size to push the Hurricanes around. The Hurricanes are a rather small team. So I like Vegas at that number. It's almost even money. And even with the goaltending question mark, I still feel like that's a really good play tonight. And then finally, the Wild at the Stars. And the Wild have been another team that has been very inconsistent. And they have not played well on the road. And the Stars, after their browbeating by the owner, has seemed to pick up their offense. They've also gotten healthier. Their goaltending has always been decent this year, but they just haven't been able to score goals. I think they're one of the last place teams in scoring goals in the first period. But at minus 130, that's a little heavy. But if you took it at minus 1, that ought to be about plus 150. So that's a very attractive number because the Stars can put up goals in bunches. It seems like once they break the ice, they seem to pick up with their tempo. So we'll see what games we end up with tonight. But I'll probably have 2 hockey plays for you as we go through. So after our NHL on Saturday, we have college basketball, and I'm sure there's a big slate of games. And the major problem, as we've talked about on the show, is that there are no lines currently out for tomorrow's games, or they're scarce. They usually will come out in the evening, Friday evening for Saturday, and then the totals will come out Saturday morning for Saturday afternoon. So Syracuse is playing, for our Syracuse fans that watch, they're playing at Pitt Saturday night, 6 o'clock. And Syracuse came off a really impressive showing at Boston College. Impressive to me by the fact that they came back from such an awful start. And I feel like you have to have games like that if you're going to succeed in the tournament, because you have to have games you think you can win even when everything is going wrong. And that's, it seemed like the team contributed at a deeper level. What I mean by that is the deeper part of the rotation. Boeheim came in and played well. And even though Brissett had a pretty bad game, everybody else came in and contributed in some way. So I do like Syracuse to win this game. Pitt is in a rebuilding year. They can always have a letdown, but I can't imagine Syracuse being 8, 9, 10-point favorite in this game on the road. There are very few teams that they've been able to, dominate on the road. So I find this to be about a 4 to 5 point game. So my guess is the spread's going to be about 4.5. Syracuse favored. I have no idea on the total. But if you could get 4.5, I think Syracuse is the side here. Over 5, then I start to question it as a no play. And then obviously if it's in double digits, I think I would take Pitt, if they're getting 10, 11, 12 points. Again, that's the lesson about, not betting the team, but betting the number. What number would you take this team? What number would you take that team? And, that's something we try to emphasize here. So after Saturday, we move on to Super Bowl 53. And the current odds, it's Patriots versus the Rams. The Patriots are 2.5-point favorites, and the total is 56. And those of you that watch the show know that I have been praising the Rams consistently throughout the second half of the season. Even though they lost 2 games in a row, they still finished 12-4. I said they were the best team, and I felt like that they should be in the Super Bowl and they should win. I didn't feel like anybody from the AFC was going to give them trouble. And then I started to worry about the Chiefs. I said, maybe the Chiefs, but the Patriots are in the Super Bowl. And I have a few thoughts and ruminations. These are not, nothing you can take to the bank. These are just my opinion. But I followed the line every day since the line came out. The line actually came out Rams -1.5, I think, on the Sunday of the championship games. And it quickly moved to New England within a day or two. And basically, in the places I can place a wager, it has never moved to Rams +3 or Patriots -3. The books for some reason, do not want to take money at that line. They've juiced that line pretty heavily. The Rams 2.5 at +2.5 is about -104, and the Rams +3 is like -136. So they're making it an unattractive line so people will not bet because you can buy that half point. And the total has come down from 57.5 down to about 56 now, and I wonder where it'll end up. We still have the weekend ahead of us, and a lot can happen, and people are waiting for last-minute information. But the fact that the sportsbooks do not want to post the Rams +3, even though they're getting a lot of Patriots money, supposedly. I have no way of verifying that, but leads me to believe that they think the Rams, have a legit shot to win this game. They won't favor the Patriots by a field goal. So the other thing that I pay attention to during this period of 2 weeks between the championship games and the Super Bowl is the media. And all the media narratives are about the Patriots. Tom Brady is back. He's the greatest of all time. The Patriots are in 3 straight Super Bowls. Will Gronk retire at the end of the season? Will Brady retire at the end of the season? It's all about the Patriots. It's all about there are very few stories in national media, not localized. I'm sure in LA there's a lot of LA stories, but about the Rams. They're being totally underreported, I guess I should say. The big question with the Rams is Todd Gurley, because in the playoffs he hasn't played that much, and he wasn't listed on the injury report, but people think he might be injured. And so he's been splitting time with C.J. Anderson at running back. So I think that is a minimal issue for this team if they run with C.J. Anderson or they run with Todd Gurley, and then they do the jet sweeps to some of their receivers to handle the ball. It's not going to change their game plan at all. They can win with the pass. They can win with the run. They have the better defense. They have the better punter, and they have the better place kicker. So I'm all in on the Rams. When I say all in, I'm betting on the Rams. It doesn't mean I'm betting everything I have on the Rams. Don't ever do that, by the way. But I like the Rams to win this game. It will come down to, execution and turnovers, as it always does. But coaching does matter, and hopefully if a team gets 4th and 1 on the 1-inch line, they won't kick a field goal like they did last time. But that's where we are going to go with that. So before we get to the picks for today's episode, I want to spend a few minutes talking about prop bets, and I'm going to go away from the screen for a second, and I'm on the Pinnacle Sports website, which is one of the biggest offshore sports books, and I just want to show you on this screen, they have listed about at least 100 props, if not 200 here, and you can choose different wagers to make on this game. You can see receiving yards for Julian Edelman, receptions. You can see will he score a TD, and then you have Rob Gronkowski stuff, and then Philip Dorsett, and all the different players, Chris Hogan, receiving yards for Cordarrelle Patterson, Brandon Cooks. We have Robert Woods, Josh Reynolds, Higbee, and then you get into the quarterbacks, and they talk about the Rams' possessions and how many first downs and all these. We're going back and forth. Will the Rams have a 4th down conversion? Yes or no? That means will they get a first down on 4th down? You can bet on, just about anything you could think of. And before I started the broadcast, I tried to pick out a couple of these that I liked. And there were two that I really liked, that one disappeared. They're not offering it anymore. And another one, the odds changed to not be attractive. So if you do find them, I would recommend maybe considering a wager on them. And the two that I do like are, will Tom Brady score a touchdown? And that's not a passing touchdown. That is a rushing or receiving touchdown. And I believe the odds were plus 810 last time I looked, and I cannot find that one now. But if that is available, I would put a few bucks on that. If you put a 20 on that, that would pay, close to, a collect ticket would pay close to $180, $190. There's a good. They would have to have a first and goal from the 1 for him to rush it in. And maybe they try one of those crazy plays if they're way ahead. But and the other one I always look for specifically, and I bet on is will there be the total number of punts? It's currently 7.5, and you have two coaches that I would consider to be modern era coaches that don't play a defensive field position game. So 7.5 is a little bit low, but I usually go under on the total number of punts. And it's minus 138 right now, and those odds are too low for me to place a wager on the total number of punts. So those two I skipped. But for my picks for this weekend, including the Super Bowl, I'm going to go Friday. I'm going to hold my nose and take the Capitals money line at plus money. I hope that they're rested and ready. And this assumes that Ovechkin is playing, of course. If he's not, I will, not play that. But for purposes of the show, it will go forward as is. And then I'm going to take the Dallas Stars at home -1 at +150. I feel like they've been playing really well, and I look for them to have a strong second half. And then we have the Rams on Sunday, money line +120. I had been waiting to see this go to 130, and it never did. And that's another, indicator to me that the sportsbooks really feel the Rams have a solid chance to win this game, and they don't want to give, juicy odds on the Rams side. So they're taking a lot of Patriots money, but they're not looking to take a lot of Rams money. So they're kind of taking a side on this game. And so for my props, the one I really like the best out of all the ones I looked at is Robert Woods to score a touchdown, and I say yes, and the odds are +172. Now, I know he is their highest targeted receiver, so he is going to get the most looks during the game. I do know that when the Rams are close to the goal line, they like to go to the tight end or the slot, Reynolds in the slot, or the tight end, Higbee. But I feel like, Robert Woods could have 10 catches in this game, and he could easily take one to the house. So I like that bet a lot. And Julius Edelman, TD, yes, +108. There's always the option he could sweep if they get close to the goal line. And he is, he's thrown too often when they're like 2 yards away from the goal line. +108 is very good money for that. I expected this to be somewhat of a high-scoring game. As a matter of fact, I feel like if the total got down to 54, I would definitely consider placing an over bet on the Super Bowl. But those are my props, and we talked all about prop wagering today. And I don't usually mess with props. There's some people that like to play them, and it's a fun way to have a little action on the game. But again, you're relying on a specific event occurring as opposed to the outcome of the team, the team's playing. So it is fun, though. They come up with all kinds of crazy bets that you can look for. So that's going to do it for today's show. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. And I'm going to play the outro music here, and we'll see you next time. Get some winners. Enjoy this big day. Don't eat too much.